Welcome to WHRO's Weekly Edition. I'm Jordan Christie.
And I'm Barry Graham.
We highlight the week's news and stories happening all over Hampton Roads. We've got the latest regional news to wrap up your week. In today's program, congressional analysts are skeptical that Newport News Shipbuilding has the surplus capacity needed to fulfill the Trump administration's mandate for new battleships.
Folks around Hampton Roads spend each month volunteering their weekends by picking and arranging flowers rescued from trash bins.
Me being a dumpster diver and hate to see waste, I've been eco-friendly and sustainable for years before it became popular. I gathered up everything that I could gather.
And a contract dispute between Sentara Health and Anthem Insurance could negatively affect nearly 380,000 Anthem members across Virginia. It's WHRO's Weekly Edition.
The Trump administration is considering leasing a tract of ocean off of the eastern shore for mineral mining that dredges up huge portions of the seabed. WHRO's Catherine Hefner reports communities along the shore are pushing back.
Chincoteague resident Jim Dawson has been fishing these waters for more than 40 years. He worries digging up the seafloor would disturb the complex microscopic world that dwells there and helps feed his livelihood.
It's just a very diverse, phenomenal amount of species that are all together out there. And when you mess with one thing, it offsets the other.
Jill Bieri with the Nature Conservancy says mining could threaten 60 years of conservation work in the area, like restoring seagrass.
Not only has there been millions and millions of dollars invested in protecting this place, but it is a huge driver in our culture here on the Eastern Shore. It's just too important a place to embark on something that might have a negative impact.
The counties of Accomack and Northampton formally opposed the proposal. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
The public can submit comments about the proposal through August 22nd. Learn more at WHRO.org.
Virginia Secretary of Health and Human Resources Marvin Figueroa told Hampton Roads nonprofit and community leaders the state is preparing for major cuts to federal health care and nutrition programs. WHRO's Michelle Hankerson shares how those cuts will impact Virginians.
Figueroa says his office estimates 300,000 Virginians could lose health care coverage at the beginning of 2027 as a result of President Donald Trump's Big Beautiful Bill. The state could also lose more than $2 billion from its SNAP budget at the same time, Figueroa says.
One of the hardest things about this go-around is that even if we do everything right, we are going to minimize harm. We're not going to prevent it. And that is very sobering.
Hampton Roads has one of the highest populations of people whose benefits are at risk. Governor Abigail Spanberger's administration has outlined a plan to keep people from losing their benefits. It includes paperwork assistance to fit updated eligibility requirements and job placement assistance to fulfill the new work requirement. Michelle Hankerson, WHRO News.
WHRO News freelancer Nash Phillips contributed to the report. Congressional analysts question whether Newport News Shipbuilding has the extra capacity to handle the Trump administration's plan to build battleships. WHRO's Steve Walsh explains where things stand in the development pipeline.
The Congressional Budget Office estimates the first proposed battleship will cost $23 billion. That's $10 billion more than the Ford-class aircraft carrier. President Donald Trump announced the plan in December to build more than 20 battleships as part of a plan for what he calls the Golden Fleet. The plan now includes making the ships nuclear-powered. CBO points out that only Newport News Shipbuilding is set up to build nuclear-powered ships. The company is already behind on producing nuclear-powered carriers and submarines. Huntington Ingalls Industry is also expected to be helping with the design of the ship. Money for the new ships is included in the defense budget, which is currently stalled in Congress. Steve Walsh, WHRO News.
Stick around for a special report later in the show. WHRO's Steve Walsh shares the status of hundreds of sailors and their families who were rushed out of Bahrain at the onset of the Iran war. But first, in a landmark decision last week, a federal judge in Harrisonburg ruled in favor of Shenandoah County students and the NAACP.
That's after they sued the county school system over its controversial decision to revert two school names to Confederate names.
Lawyers for both sides are considering next steps, and now an appeal seems likely, as WMRA's Bridget Manley reports.
Judge Michael Urbanski issued his long-awaited order in a court case that has been ongoing since 2024, after the school board reversed a 2020 name change, returning 2 schools to their former Confederate names. Urbanski ordered the Shenandoah County School Board to, quote, remedy the constitutional and statutory violations by removing the names Stonewall Jackson and Ashby Lee and adopting new school names on a racially non-discriminatory basis with all deliberate speed. Appeals to the opinion seem almost a foregone conclusion. However, lawyers for the students and the Virginia chapter of the NAACP have sent a letter to the school board's lawyer, Jim Gwynn of Gwynn Waddell, asking the school board to consider mediation rather than appealing. Gwynn previously told WMRA his clients were prepared to take the case as far as the U.S. Supreme Court. Lawyers with the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs said that because of the decision, the plaintiffs are entitled to an award of reasonable costs and fees based on the hours attorneys and legal staff have committed to the case. In the letter, lawyers outlined the cost to Shenandoah County taxpayers, stating that, quote, the actual costs incurred are approximately $500,000, and the attorney fees incurred exceed $15 million. They do anticipate seeking fees significantly less than the total amount incurred, but their petition to the court for attorney fees will still be in the $7 to $10 million range.
School starts this week, and they still have time to remove the Confederate names from the schools before school starts. But we want to be clear that if they don't do that, it will cost Shenandoah County.
Lee Reed is an attorney with Covington & Burling, LLP, representing the students and the NAACP. Speaking at the press conference, she said that before seeking litigation, the students had tried to resolve the dispute.
Our clients have never sought money in this case. They only sought for the name to be removed so that students would feel welcome and safe in their school environment. Plaintiffs also made every effort to resolve the case without costly litigation. Before involving counsel, they sent multiple letters. They went to school board meetings. They advocated for themselves in every way possible to stop the school board from changing the names.
Further, Reed said, attorneys continued throughout the litigation to reach out and settle, offering to, quote, resolve the matter without any cost to the school board, and that the board knew going into the trial that they would be responsible for costs and fees should they lose. They say that if the school board chooses mediation and that mediation is successful, quote, in order to put this dispute to an end, lawyers for the students and the NAACP would be, quote, willing to reduce the amount of the award of costs and fees by millions of dollars. However, the attorneys warned that if the school board decides to continue appeals, they will not agree to discounting any fees or costs, and that they want to, quote, provide an off-ramp to bring a prompt resolution to this litigation and reduce the financial burden that will be visited on the local community. Gwynn told WMRA that he understands the school board will appeal and that he is waiting for the official word before filing the appeal. When asked about the letter, the possibility of mediation, and the amount of attorney fees that could be paid by Shenandoah County taxpayers, Gwynn said he could not comment because he had not, quote, discussed them with his client.
For many, it was more than a name change. It was a reminder of history, of exclusion and discrimination.
Kim Carter is the mother of A.D. Carter, one of the student plaintiffs.
I'm hopeful that we can move behind that hurtful chapter and focus on building a future that brings people together, and our schools can be a place where everyone feels welcomed and respected and valued in our county. Thank you.
For WMRA News, I'm Bridget Manley.
The cost of replacing Williamsburg's downtown library has increased by several $1 million as council nears voting on the project. WHRO's Nick McNamara breaks down the numbers.
Project contractors told Council on Tuesday they expect the building would cost at least $30 million and would surpass $31 if they include optional features. That's after designers shrank the square footage by 5%, reduced the number of elevators, and used less expensive materials to cut costs. Rising cost of materials and labor drive much of the increase. The final price will reach past $60 million, including furniture, tech, and interest. The city's financial advisor, Davenport, said the city has room to layer in the debt over 2 years without surpassing its debt cap. The Friends of the Williamsburg Regional Library, a philanthropic group, is preparing a capital campaign to raise nearly $3 million for equipment. The city is also looking at using $5 million earmarked for a proposed live performance venue with council approval to lower the debt load up front. Council could vote by mid-September. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
The historic Cape Charles Elementary was once the school for Black children. WHRO's Michelle Hankerson reports it's now called the Impact Center and has plans to honor its history by becoming more than a museum.
Cape Charles Elementary School alum Richard Press said the school was a comforting place when parts of the world weren't accessible for Black people.
When we left our home and crossed the hump, this was our haven. We didn't have to worry about segregation. We didn't have to worry about not being treated right or not standing around a particular place.
The school is just past a hill that students called the Hump. WHRO's Another View with Barbara Ham-Lee broadcast live from the school building last week. The school took on a new name after the building was rehabilitated and reopened. It's called the Impact Center. As the Impact Center, leaders hope to offer educational classes for the community as soon as this fall. To hear more about the history of Cape Charles Elementary and plans for its future, look for Another View with Barbara Ham-Lee wherever you listen to podcasts. Michelle Hankerson, WHRO News.
College and university is already a pricey proposition for Virginians, and those prices are expected to keep soaring this year. That's according to one report. WHRO's Ashley White tells us more.
The average cost of tuition and mandatory instructional fees rose about $320, according to the annual report from the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia. On average, in-state undergraduate students will pay about $10,000 this year, depending on whether they attend a 2- or 4-year institution. Community college students will pay about $5,000, compared to a 4-year school, which averages $16,000, not factoring in room and board. The report, released earlier this month, is a way for students to assess what's best for them, said Jessica Minnis-McLean, the manager of finance policy and innovation at Chev.
Yes, students need to be very well aware this is an expensive endeavor, and it's incredibly important. And by looking at these kind of reports, they can get an idea of how much college costs and what that would mean long term.
Ashley White, WHRO News.
Each month, dozens of volunteers are spending their Saturday picking and arranging flowers that have been rescued from a trash bin. I ventured into Norfolk to explore the world of love petals. It's a blazing hot day in late July, the kind where the flowers start to wilt from an oppressive sun that's been beating down on Hampton Roads all summer. However, on this Saturday at Norfolk's Jordan Newby Library, a crew of about 40 aren't letting the flowers wilt. In fact, they're rescuing them in a different way. Love Petals is the brainchild of master florist Ivory Morgan Burton, who saw countless cut flowers being tossed by distributors. She decided to act, creating a repurposing event where the flowers are redistributed to nursing homes and hospitals. Each month, volunteers descend on a venue to learn how to arrange the flowers, then to develop an arrangement that goes out to an elderly care facility. Morgan Burton said the concept of rescuing the flowers from a trash bin came natural to her.
It wasn't an idea. It just wound up being an obligation. To be completely candid, I went to the wholesaler to purchase flowers for my own company. And while I was there, they were throwing them away because it was during COVID and there was no call for all the flowers that were being destroyed. Me being a dumpster diver and hate to see waste, I've been eco-friendly and sustainable for years before it became popular. I gathered up everything that I could gather and designed arrangements and then went all over Hampton Roads and dropped them to friends, to neighbors, and people I didn't know.
On this Saturday, around 40 volunteers descended on the library, where countless buckets of flowers and greenery were laid out. Morgan Burton began giving arranging instructions.
Do not go more than 8 inches high and 6 inches wide. You've got to remember, it's got to be packed in a van in boxes and transported. It also has to sit many times in a hospital or anywhere. It sits on a food table in their room. It may sit on a dresser or a cabinet in their rooms, depending on the facility we go to, so they cannot be used.
With 40 people, all with different skill sets working with the flowers, the arrangements truly varied, though that seemed to be the desired outcome that Ivory Morgan Burton wanted.
With this, my goal is to teach them to be comfortable, to be complementary to their skill set. And some of them have been with me for so long, they've actually gotten a good level of education and knowledge on how to do it. When it's finished, it's their love, it's their creativity that I want to showcase, not what I can do. So I teach them the basics, we talk about techniques and procedures, and then turn them loose and let them go. And no arrangement looks like another one.
Vicki Rogers, who chairs the Norfolk Public Library Board, was there working with the flowers. I asked her what got her out on such a hot and sticky Saturday.
I'm doing what I like to do. I really enjoy doing this, and it's for a great cause. These floral arrangements are going to nursing homes or hospitals or senior centers, and so it's a wonderful thing that we're doing. And I love floral arranging.
That same sentiment was shared by Carmen Payton, who was working on her second arrangement of the afternoon.
Knowing that I made somebody else happy that's going to receive these flowers makes me feel good. It fills my need to give back. And I don't need to see them to know that I made somebody else happy.
Love Petals is multifaceted. It creates a skill set in arranging flowers while also furthering sustainability by rescuing blooms destined for the landfill. However, perhaps its most important role is to bring joy to those who might need it the most in our community. For WHRO News, I'm Barry Graham.
If you've got some flowers for me, bring them to me now.
Virginia Beach City Council is selling Virginia Beach National Golf Club. WHRO's John Doucette shares what led to the decision.
About 340 acres of public land, including the course, would go to the Dragus companies. In turn, it would restore VB National, reconfigure some holes, and keep it public. They'll also build 659 for-sale housing units. The sale has frustrated citizens who want the course to stay in city hands and don't want housing. Dozens spoke out Tuesday, though others supported the sale. City officials say it will save taxpayers millions in maintenance. Councilmember Jennifer Rouse added language to require assurances about affordable housing in the project.
I did that, in my view, as a compromise to try to get some of the feedback that I'd heard about concerns about affordability. We want to know what actually will that look like.
Officials have said it may take a year to close the deal. John Doucette, WHRO News.
Norfolk City Council has begun limiting public comments deemed repetitive. WHRO's Brian Saunders reports some residents say it's preventing them from sharing their thoughts with their elected leaders.
When large turnouts hit the council floor, Norfolk Council rules say the mayor can step in to cap comments on a single topic. Local residents like Henry Reed say the practice blocks their direct connection to city officials.
Silencing of public speaking voices, it purposely puts a wall between the people and their counselors.
At meetings this summer, the council stopped residents like Reed from speaking against flock surveillance cameras installed around the city. Mayor Kenny Alexander says that the rarely used measure prevents coordinated advocacy groups from taking over public comment when other residents are waiting to bring up items like flooding, parks, or schools. He says council members are accessible outside formal council sessions. Brian Saunders, WHRO News.
A contract dispute between Sentara Health and Anthem could affect nearly 380,000 Anthem members across Virginia. WHRO's I Ching Wang reports how this would impact people's premiums.
Sentara is seeking about a 6% increase in reimbursement rates for next year, while Anthem has proposed roughly a 1% drop. If no deal is reached, some contracts will expire starting next year. Sentara says higher payments are needed to cover rising costs. But Sabrina Corlett, a health policy professor at Georgetown University, reviewed federal cost report data for Sentara Norfolk General.
It looks to me they've got a very healthy profit margin of 29.5%, and the national median for hospitals is 14%. So looks to me like they're doing quite well.
Corlett says contract disputes like this often end in a deal, but higher hospital payments by the insurance company can eventually be passed to patients through higher premiums or deductibles. Sentara remains in Anthem's network for now. Yiqing Wang, WHO News.
During the early weeks of the war with Iran, hundreds of sailors and their families were rushed out of Bahrain with only a duffel bag.
As the war continues, many of these families are still living out of suitcases back in the U.S. The Navy is trying to figure out what's best for them.
WHRO's Steve Walsh has this report for NPR.
Shortly after the war with Iran started in late February, one Navy spouse was about to go back to Bahrain with her husband. Then they got word from the Navy.
A day before we were supposed to leave to be stationed in Bahrain together, we were told we need to go somewhere else for a short period of time, and then here we are 5 months later.
NPR has agreed to withhold their names. The Navy spouse is concerned about the potential impact on her husband's career. The two of them are now living out of 3 duffel bags.
We were at one location for a while, and then spur of the moment sent to another location for what ended up being 10 weeks. So it's a lot of moving with very short notice and can't really unpack or own too much because you never know when you're going to be going somewhere else.
They're on what's called temporary duty status, so they aren't eligible for base housing or money for rent. American bases in the region remain targets for Iran. After a first story ran on NPR in April, the Navy conceded that at least 1,500 troops and their families had left the Navy base in Bahrain, which is home to the Navy's 5th Fleet. When military members and their families go overseas, they have to designate a place they would return in an emergency. Some evacuees remain at the place they designated. Others are still moving from base to base. Head of Fleet Forces Admiral Carl Thomas told NPR that the Navy hasn't released an overall plan, but reopening Bahrain to families seems unlikely in the near future.
We're really trying to take each case individually and make sure those people are taken care of and we understand what they want. But with things heating back up over there right now, it's not an option.
Some came through Norfolk, Virginia. Hundreds have arrived in Tampa, home of CENTCOM. There, the organization Blue Star Families is helping make food deliveries. Families with young children are trying to enroll in schools. They may not have all of their records, says Executive Director Susie Malloy.
When the kids first arrived, we gave them backpacks and school supplies because, they left so quickly they didn't think to grab all of what they needed to go back to school.
Ms. Shields runs JetPet, which transports animals in and out of Bahrain, including for some military and civilian defense workers. She still lives in Bahrain and remembers when the war began.
The early days, quite shocking, especially Bahrain is considered safe. It's a small island with friendly people. So when I woke up, I was literally blasted off my bed.
People weren't prepared for the cost and paperwork involved in transporting pets out of the Middle East. Many had to leave their animals behind. Pets were left with neighbors or friends and still haven't left the country.
A lot of people are in panic mode, and our team as well. We are going under that same stress where alarms go off and deprived sleep and uncertainty.
The country is still under periodic attack. For most clients, all she can tell them to do is wait and see. For NPR News, I'm Steve Walsh.
You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from WHRO's John Doucette, Catherine Hafner, Michelle Hankerson, Nick McNamara, Nash Phillips, Brian Saunders, Steve Walsh, Yiqing Wang, and Ashley White.
And WMRA's Bridget Manley. Also, Connor Worley, who produced today's show. A reminder that you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed.
You can get your news updates at WHRO.org and the WHRO Reports podcast feed.
For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Barry Graham.
And I'm Jordan Christie. Have a great weekend.